Good evening. Have one done today. God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Jill Spears Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. Give you a word on tonight. You're gonna sit at the table like a king or queen. You're gonna sit at the table like a king. You're gonna come from 2 Samuel chapter 9, 1 through 13. So David Mephibosheth, he have a long name, so a lot of times it said Jonathan's son. So now David think everyone in Saul family is dead. David one, you remember Saul got killed. Now he got killed. He killed himself after he saw both of his sons dead. So David had wanted to show kindness and give to all that belonged to Saul bloodline. So David had asked, is there anyone still left, you know, of the house of Saul, to whom I can show kindness, for Jonathan's sake. You remember, David loved Jonathan like that was his brother. Remember they had a covenant between each other. So David is speaking of showing kindness, of God to any remaining of Saul's house. So David was under Saul, but he loved Jonathan. He had a covenant. He had made with him as a friend of Jonathan. So now inquired after his family. So now there was a servant of Saul household named Ziba. So they summoned him, to appear before David. And the king had said to him, "Oh, you Ziba." That was, Saul's servant. So he said yes. And he said, Saul, servant. So he found out that Jonathan's son are still alive. See, not David. David got all this wealth, everything that's left behind from Saul. So he needs to find someone in Saul's bloodline to give her this gift to. God ready to bless this boy with all this gift. God had to hide this boy. Since he was 5 years old. So now Jonathan's son, he was 5 years old. When both of his grandfather, died at the battle of Mount Gabor. So after the death, of Saul and his father, Jonathan, the nurse had took him, and flee and panic, because the nurse already know. If they killed his father, his grandfather, no, they're gonna come to kill his mother. No, they were gonna try to kill the son. And the reason why they do that to the whole family, so nobody will have heir over or the throne, of Saul. So they can take over because it's supposed to be passed on to the family, to generation to generation. So that's why they do it that way. So that's why the nurse grabbed him and ran. So she don't know if he fell, or she dropped him, because all we know, he got lamb in both his feet. He either fell down or she dropped him. So while they was running. So after that, he was unable to walk. He's 5 years old, had to experience this here at 5 years old. You know. So this situation, is our God that's showing power in weakness and brokenness. But yet God still have a table set even in this disabled and brokenness that this boy was unable to walk, but he will find sanctuary to live. Now this boy was the last survivor. Now see, this is early on. You see, God already know our future to the end. Now God said, he gonna be having a table set for him. So that gonna be later on. See, God already know he gonna have a table set for this boy. God already hide this boy and wait for the perfect time to announce, to honor him. Honor him. God already said he gonna be sitting at this table. So he was the only one that survived, and God wanted that way. So that's why God hired him, where he survived, so he can sit at the table. So in the line of his grandfather, his life meant for death. But God saved him to live, to position him to sit at the table that would be set for him later on in life. Now he didn't know that. When God saved you for a reason. God saved him for a reason, not just to be saving him. He gonna be on the throne. He gonna be the king. He gonna be sitting at the table. And he gonna think he not worthy. So the king asks, "Is there no one still alive from the house of Saul? To whom I can show God, kindness?" Now Ziba asks him, to king, there is still a son of Jonathan. Now he is lame in both feet. Now he let David know, okay, we got somebody still alive, Jonathan's son, but I'm letting you know he lame in both feet. That doesn't matter. Because David loved the Jonathan. It doesn't matter if he lame in both his feet. David still wants to show kindness, to anyone that was still alive in Saul's bloodline. So this boy is a survivor. He is a survivor, even though he been crippled, in both feet, but he is grown with a family. They didn't stop him from having a wife and making children. So the love David had for Jonathan, all he wants to show his love and kindness to his son. Now that's what you call a friend fight. Even after that, David still loved Jonathan, still keeping a covenant with Jonathan. So where is it? You tell him about this boy now. So he like, where is this boy? Where is it? So King Ahab would answer, he at the house of Maron. So now the son had the right to the throne. So that's what God saved him. He had the right to this throne. He was a son of the firstborn son. And the other heir was dead. All the rest of his brothers, everybody was dead. He was the only one God allowed to be a survivor. And God touched this nurse's heart, to grab him and run and hide him somewhere. So King David had him brought, from his little small little town island that he was at. So now David knows that someone survived, which is Jonathan's son, and he invite him to go to the palace at the royal table, on public days was assigned for him. Now he assigned that public day for him. He assigned that public day for him. So now in the early talk about God saved him, to position him to sit at the table. Now God know our beginning to the end. Because God said early on, he gonna be positioned, and be sitting at the table. See, God already know he gonna be sitting at the table. So God already have a plan for us, And see, a lot of time, if we say, if the nurse was set there in position, to grab him and allow him to live. And when God said he found sanctuary and living with his 2 feet like that, then God said it's time. It's time for me to honor him. So the son of Jonathan, a son here, came to David. He went to David. He bowed down to pay him honor. And David said, "Son, at your service," he replied. So the son was afraid to visit the king. He was afraid to visit David. Remember, he was 5 years old when David and his daddy was friends. Now, who wanted to treat him like a prince? It says David ready to treat him like a prince. Although the son feared, his life and may have felt unworthy because of his feet. He felt unworthy to be around David. So he bowed down to David, giving David honor. So David wanted to honor him and show him the love and loyalty that he had promised his father Jonathan. So David had given the son, to wait for all who receive God's gift, through trust in Jesus. Not because we deserve it. Tell me that all the time, but because of what God had promised. Because of what God had promised. David telling him, don't be afraid. Because he was so nervous, he was afraid. And David said to him, for I will surely, show you kindness, for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belongs to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Now this boy grew up crippling both of his feet, try to live the best way he can. Still found a wife and still was able to make children. But now it comes the time that God gonna take you out of hiding, you know, and announce you. You're gonna sit at that table that God been announcing all these many years since you were 5 years old. God knew you were gonna be at this point that you were gonna sit at this table. Not only that you getting God gift. You're getting all the gifts that belong to you. You're getting the throne. You're getting everything. Not only you getting everything, but you're going to sit at the table like a king. You're going to sit at the table like the king. Not one day, but always. So David's treatment of this son showed as a leader, who accept his obligation to show love and mercy. His generous provision for Jonathan's son goes beyond any political benefit. He might have received, but not only did he restore all that his grandfather owned, but he was sit and he was eat at David's table, not one time, always. And this David treatment to the son, because David loved his father Jonathan. Imagine what he gonna do with the son. He gonna love his son like that's his son. So now the son had bowed down. Now David telling him, I'm about to restore everything that your grandfather owned. You about to have all this land, the flocks, your oxen. You about to have everything. Everything that your grandfather had owned, I'm about to release it to you. So now, instead of him taking that in, he bowed down and he said, what is your sentence? That you should notice a day dawn like me. Now, instead of him being happy and jumping up and down, he have low self-esteem because he is crippling both his feet. He gonna feel like he out of place. He gonna feel like he out of place. God set this table for you for this moment. Don't feel out of place. You get an invitation, you take that invitation and you sit at the table like everyone else. So David basically had just said that I will make sure you are provided for. That you will eat at my table always. The son is so overwhelmed. He called himself a day dog. That's too much of a low self-esteem because of his crippleness. But God had everything set for him since he was 5 years old. God will have blessing for you before you was born. He was 5 years old when God already probably had a table set for him for this very moment. So he bowed, he bowed himself, in a token of gratitude, and that's a sign of humility, and of the sense that he had of his unworthiness, to enjoy such a favor. Now he looked at himself as a dead dog, So I'm saying to everyone, I already know for myself. I'm invited to a table among managers and head chief and lieutenants and all that kind of stuff. You're talking about giving me an invitation. Say, okay, what seat you want me to sit at? Okay, I'm gonna sit right here. Sit at the center like I'm one of the big old top leaders or something. That's how you got to think. You got to think big. You cannot think like you're a dead dog. You got to think that you're worthy. You got to know that you're a child of God. So this boy, he been hiding for so long. And then the small little island, wasn't around no one while he was growing up. Luckily he found the wife, maybe she was on that island with him, but he pretty much wasn't around no one, and now he around people and he don't even feel worthy. He don't even feel worthy to sit at the table. So then the king summons him, that Saul all servant, and said to him, I had given your master, grandson, everything, that belongs to Saul and his family. Now he letting Saul servants know, look, I retreat everything, to your master's grandson. I'm just letting you know, he got everything, So David let Ziba know that he give the invitation to the king table. To the king table, son will be sitting at the table, at the same table where all the kings sit at. Now see, all the kings sit at the table and eat dinner with David. So now, David letting Ziba know, okay, I give an invitation to another guest. He gonna be filling in at one of these chairs at this table here. I'm just letting you know, so you won't say nothing while he's sitting at the table and running around in the field, because he own all that now. So now, he letting him know the invitation for a table gonna be set for this boy. So to all, when you get an invitation, to be honored, and you gonna sit at the table like a king, do not turn no invitation down. Do not think of yourself as a dead dog. Think yourself as you worthy. That you highly praise. No matter what less that you have, and you stand against someone else, always think that you worthy. Think highly of yourself, even when you're standing next to one that's high, that making more money than you. Always walk with your chest sticking out with so much faith, that you feel you got to feel like you worthy. No matter who you stand against, always feel worthy. Don't never think that you are dead dog. So don't feel unworthy. Don't feel unworthy, like a dead dog. Sit as a guest, and be proud. Sit up there and look cute and be proud, and sit just like you belong there. Have the table, your folks gonna be there. Everybody else, the king gonna be sit there. You sit there like you belongs there. So you are a child of God. Sit at the table like a king. So he was like, you want me to sit at the table with all the rest of the king, I'm gonna be feeling like a king's son. Yes, you gonna be like David's son. You gonna be sitting at the table. They eat dinner together. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops. So that your master, grandson, may be provided for. And the grandson of your master will always eat at my table. He's still talking to Saul's servant. He's still talking to Saul's servant. So the servants of Saul's servant have 15 sons and have 20 servants. That's why David said, you got all this help right here. So you got to help him out. So now David declared public, what he has said privately, to this son. His family was to be maintained by the fruit of the estate, that David give him. Though he himself was to eat always with David, even though he was lame, it did not hinder him, from being an entertainment by the king. David told Ziba, the children you have to help and provide for him. So the son will have his own servant soon. Now he come from nothing and about to own everything. About to soon have his own servants. Have people serving him and his wife and his children and stuff. So then Ziba had said to the king, your servant will do whatever my lord the king command his servants to do. So the son ate at David's table, like one of the king's sons, and Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants, and a slave in his house was to show that the son will be honored with an equip as one of the king's sons. So they're gonna treat him like one of the king's sons. So he needs to get out of his head talking about some dead dog. You ain't no dead dog. Once they keep on rubbing up on you, then you gonna feel like you one of the kings. So God hid him since he was 5 years old. You know, waiting to put him out at the right time. God do things on the divine time. So I don't know how old he is now, but I know he was 5 years old when he ran and fell down. So he lame in both of his feet, but he found sanctuary in his life. God saw that he was ready to be honored, and to receive his blessing. Not on it, he received his blessing, for honor, but to sit at David's table and eat, like a king. He felt like he was unworthy at first. You know, but to tell you all, when you receive invitations to sit at the table to be honored, sit like a king that you are. Sit at the table like a king. So that's the story of sit at the table like a king. This Jonathan's son, he was the only one that had survived. Now, Saul had murdered his own son when he had saw both of his sons killed. So he decided to do him. He said ain't no need for him.